गुड मॉर्निंग लेडीज एंड जेंटलमैन, मैं हूं आपकी होस्ट, आपकी दोस्त अमरीन हसनात. So glad to be here this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, Funasia has launched this new radio vision technology, and now you're able to hear us as well as see us through our Funasia radio app. Now, one of the new things that we are venturing into is getting our publicly elected officials to come to Funasia Radio and address the community. So this morning we are very pleased to have Congressman Van Taylor with us this morning. A seventh generation Texan, Mr. Taylor is a family man, a businessman, and a decorated Iraq War veteran. He began representing Collin County in the U.S. Congress last year, and he previously served as a Texas senator and state rep for this area. We are so glad to have you here. Welcome to Funasia Radio. I know our listeners will be very interested in hearing about your work in Washington, D.C., serving Collin County. So today we also have with us CEO of Thakkar Developer, Mr. Poorvesh Thakkar, as well as the CEO of Perfect Tax and CMO of Funasia Radio, Mrs. Vaishali Thakkar. Welcome, Poorvesh and Vaishali.
Thank you so much, Umbreen. A very good morning to all our listeners on behalf of Funasia and Perfect Group of Companies. It gives me a great pleasure to welcome the Honorable Congressman, Mr. Van Taylor of the 3rd Congressional District of Texas.
Thank you very much, Umbreen, for welcoming us on airwaves of Funasia.
So, Congressman, we have few questions for you. So my first question would be, what's your stand on the current state of economy related to the jobs?
Sure. Well, I think you're seeing strong job numbers coming out. You're seeing the economy is certainly growing. The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that was passed last year has done a couple things. It's encouraged spending for investment because you can write off your investments immediately instead of having to amortize them, and so that's a big change. And so you're watching a lot of people invest in new equipment, new plants, new factories, new electronics, new processes, and then and I'll just say, here in Collin County, the job growth has been really the biggest problem I have is I've got CEOs coming to me literally every day saying I need more people.
Right.
I need more talented people. I've got real workforce requirements, and so working with them to try to make sure that we've got our public universities and to make sure that our community college is helping to generate and our public schools are generating the workforce for the 21st century. But we're definitely seeing one of the strongest economies we've ever seen in our country, and the job growth is there, and the wage growth is there.
Yes.
You're seeing people's take-home pay has gone up. Now, part of that's gone up because of tax cuts, but part of that's gone up just because you're watching. It's so hard to hire people; they're having to give raises to get people to come work for them, to stay.
Right.
It's in a way good problem to have.
Sure, it's a fancy problem. It's a fancy problem. It's a fancy problem, but I'll take it.
Along with that, our listeners would like to know that as national debt reaches $23 trillion, and our nation faces an unprecedented financial crisis also, as a congressman, how do you plan to address that?
Sure. So, so I was in the state legislature in Texas for a while, and the Texas legislature has passed a balanced budget on time every time since 1963. Congress has not passed a budget on time in 17 years. And it's probably worth asking, well, what is Texas doing that they're not doing in Washington? And the answer is Texas does all their spending in a single bill. They have a single bill budget. And that's really how most people do it. Most countries, most cities, counties, states, they do single bill budgets. In Washington, D.C., they did a single bill budget until 1975. In 1975, they actually changed, and they went to a 13 bill budget system. And of the 43 budgets passed with that 13 bill budget system, literally only 4 have been on time. They've racked up $22 trillion of debt, and that is really where your problem is. You have a system that is basically impossible to balance the budget.
Right. So my next question would be, Congressman, is that there is a lot of discussion about the illegal immigration, but legal immigration is also a very important area in this. So can you tell us about your efforts to improve the visa process?
Sure. So, the United States of America is a very generous country in terms of immigration. We admit 10 million people every year with temporary visas. 1.1 million people every year are admitted with green cards, with permanent visas. And we naturalize 750,000 new Americans who were born somewhere else that come to this country. And actually, we have the highest percentage of foreign-born people in this country that we've ever had. So 15% of the people that live in this country today are foreign-born, which it's actually never been higher. So America is clearly a very generous country when it comes to immigration. We are a nation of immigrants to start with, so it kind of makes sense that we would continue that in that tradition. Something I've worked on is HR 1044, which is trying to remove the country caps to get to a more meritocratic immigration system. Of the 1.1 million green cards, we only 140,000 are for labor, where we actually require an employer to say, you know what, I can't find an American for this job. I need to plug a hole in the economy and hire somebody who's a foreigner to do that job. And then in turn, by having a foreigner do that job, you can have other Americans working around them, so you can help grow your economy. So having more work-based visas, which means that you're actually protecting the American worker and you're growing your economy at the same time. So it's good for the American worker, it's good for the economy, and it's good for our country because you're continuing to keep the same number of green cards that you have now.
Right.
Well, another thing our listeners would like to know that you have been known to work with both parties, Republican, Democrats, to craft policies and discuss ideas.
Yeah.
We would like to know how successful have you been at that endeavor of yours?
Sure. So, when I was in the state legislature, I passed 81 bills. Every one had bipartisan support. So I had a strong track record of reaching across the aisle to come up with common sense solutions that people could agree on, and really worked toward trying to get, solve problems, whatever the problem may have been. And in Congress, I'm beginning with phone calls and texts and a handshake, and that's where a relationship begins. It begins with those basic acts of, and I have actually spent a lot of time getting to know my Democrat colleagues. Probably a couple of Republicans have commented, you spend more time getting to know the Democrats than any of us do. I should do that more too. So I think you could lead by example. In the Marine Corps, the motto of the basic school is actually leadership by example, ductus exemplo. And so I'm trying to lead by example, try to build relationships across the aisle. I've actually signed on to more. 90% of the bills I've signed on to are actually bipartisan bills, and actually every bill I've filed so far has had Democrat and Republican sponsors. So I work with Democrats wherever I can to try to solve particular problems.
Next question, Congressman, is that what are your top priorities issues this year and next year?
Well, as a new member of Congress, what I'm focused on is building relationships and trying to figure out how the place works so that I can be very effective. I am working on a couple different issues that come to me from my constituents. So I actually have had a 100% meeting policy since in the 8 months I've been in Congress. I've actually today I'll break 300 separate meetings that I've had in 8 months in office.
Wow.
Well, my constituents deserve that. They deserve the opportunity to meet with their congressmen, and so I certainly avail myself to them. And I've had 21 separate coffees with your congressman where anybody who could come and talk to me. And I try to make sure that I work for them. I know I work for the people, and there's nothing worse than an employee that you can't find. So I try to be a very findable employee. I've filed 3 bills in Congress, and every single one of them has come as a direct result of people sitting down, telling me about their problems, and saying, "Let me go try to solve that in the Congress by passing."
Even I heard the great work on the Raytheon side, which you have done.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and we have a great business base here in Collin County. It's really, honestly, second to none. Really proud of all the terrific companies we have, and Raytheon is one of those many companies. They do tremendous work in the defense space. We've got chip manufacturers, we've got retailers, we've got credit card companies, we've got banks, we've got Toyota, we've got all these great companies that call Collin County home, and we're going to continue to grow. And I think that's because of the good choices we're making. Republican leadership in Texas and in Collin County has kept taxes low, kept regulations reasonable, kept litigation in line, and that's led to growth. And I will say that is a contrast to some of the other states. I mean, Toyota came from a blue state, right? They came from a place where they said, look, the taxes were too high. They weren't building roads. The fiscal status of the state was poor. We were nervous about what they were going to do financially. Whereas, here in Collin County, we're a AAA bond rated state. We're building roads. We've got a great justice system. We have actually one of the most electronic courthouses in the country. So we're doing things right, but it's Republicans are doing things right in Collin County, and to some extent, you watch in other blue states, people say we just can't do it here anymore. We're moving to Collin County.
So I read one thing about you. It's just a question that in every area you are trying to brainstorm in a single day time frame and work with the team and make sure that what are the things you need to emphasize more in which area, and you have a very clear path. So how do you manage that?
Well, I think the secret to being successful, as you know, as business leaders, is having a good team,
Yes.
good people around you. I think it's important to have humility, so that that you're not always going to have the best idea. There is wisdom in the multitudes, as is written in Proverbs, and I gain a lot of wisdom and counsel from the people that work for me, and what they say to me. So, you want to make sure that they're comfortable to challenge you and comfortable to say, hey, boss, here's this other idea. Have you thought about that? And to say, I appreciate you bringing that up, but we're going to go a different direction. Or that's a great idea. We're going to go do that.
Right.
And so you want to lift your people up. You want to support them, just the way you want to lift up your constituents and support them. And certainly, I make a diligent effort when I sit down with people to say, how can I help you? What can I do to make a difference? How can I improve things for you?
Right.
So again, we would like to say that I am personally very proud to have a congressman like you who is so much concerned about constituency and constituents of the Collin County and people who have elected you, because you want to make yourself available, talk to them and everything. Now, along with that, as a business owner, I feel very proud to have you on our radio station here. And on behalf of all the professionals, entrepreneurs and business owners tuned in right now, I would like to know, how can we be more active in supporting the causes you are taking to Washington, D.C.?
Well, I appreciate it. I've actually personally signed 15,000 letters. And so, and every letter I get is, we look at that, and that's important, and we log it in and we track it, and we know it really helps me. So if there's something you care about, so, HR 1044, there were a lot of people that really wanted that, and they showed up at the coffees, and they set up meetings, and they sent letters, and they really advocated for that. And, look, we went and read the bill and talked to the author of it, and I mean, we did our homework. We don't just kind of, just because 10 people show up and say do this, you're not going to do it, but you're certainly, it's going to get, put things in motion.
Right.
And people showed up at coffee with your congressman and said, hey, this is a bill I think you should look at, and we've looked at it and gone on and signed on to it. And again, we had we've got a great group here in Collin County that does they train search and rescue dogs. And those dogs go after hurricanes to go find survivors and find the remains of loved ones. And we realize that those dogs don't have any protections when they travel, when they try to get on a plane to go to a hurricane site to try to find bodies or to try to find survivors. They don't have any protections. So I've actually worked on a bipartisan basis to create a bill that's in front of the Transportation Committee in the U.S. House. Again, that is a bipartisan piece of legislation, but it came as a direct result of people coming to me and saying, hey, could you help us with this problem? We're trying to help people in other places. We can't seem to get there. We can't stay in hotels. We can't stay in restaurants. Can you give us the same status as a seeing eye dog under federal law if we're going to a FEMA disaster site? And so we're working on doing that, and I'm really, really proud to have a lot of support for that one.
Sure. And anything that you want support from the business community and all the listeners who are listening to you today?
Well, I just want to say that certainly in Texas, it's apparent to me that the business community has been very engaged in public policy. That they've advocated for low taxes, they've advocated for less regulation, they've advocated for a strong school system, they've advocated to have a common sense set of government standards that really has made Texas the economic juggernaut of America. And Collin County is certainly the heart of that. And so it's really important that the business community stay involved, stay engaged, that they ask the hard questions, that they push on on the elected officials and demand that they continue to be pro-business.
Thank you
Sure.
very much for
Thank you
coming
so much. And as I said earlier, we are very grateful to have you here.
Oh.
Funasia is the biggest South Asian platform, radio business, 104.9 frequency, and we are very honored to have you here. Thank you so much for coming all the way here, and our staff and the entire Perfect Group of Company is very excited to meet you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, folks. If you've just tuned in, we were talking with Congressman Van Taylor from the 3rd District of Texas here. And we had with us the CMO, CEO of Perfect Group of Companies, of course, as well as Funasia Radio, Mrs. Vaishali Thakkar, as well as the CEO of Thakkar Developers, Mr. Poorvesh Thakkar. Thank you, Congressman, for being here with us on 104.9 FM. We look forward to working with you and, of course, having you back at our studio again in future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.